This is Mac OS Ken.
Stockpiles of Apple hardware, a rush to raid those stockpiles, and has anybody else got an iPhone factory? It is Tuesday, the 8th of April, 2025. I'm Ken Ray, and this is news from Mac OS Ken, brought to you by yours truly and supported by people like you, patrons through Patreon. Find out more and add your support at patreon.com/MacOSCan. A crazy, not crazy story to start us from the subcontinent today. A piece from the Times of India tells of flights full of iPhones and other Apple hardware pulled off quickly to beat the Trump administration tariffs. Happening over the course of 3 days, the piece says urgent shipments were made during the final week of March to avoid a new 10% reciprocal tariff imposed by U.S. President Donald Trump's administration that took effect on the 5th of April. The report says the Cupertino company pulled the same move with China. One source says factories in both countries and other key locations had been shipping products to the U.S. in anticipation of the higher tariffs. Theoretically, that'll keep iPhone prices from rising near term. The same secret source tells Times of India the reserves that arrived at lower duty will temporarily insulate the company from the higher prices that it will need to pay for new shipments under the revised tax rates. Apple's U.S. warehouses are reportedly stocked for several months ahead, according to the report, though one wonders whether panic buying could shorten that lead, because that is apparently a thing that is happening. A piece from Bloomberg says employees from different Apple locations across the country said stores filled with customers over the weekend, with the shoppers expressing concerns that prices will climb dramatically after the levies are imposed. Most iPhones, Apple's best-selling and most important product, are manufactured in China, which is in line for tariffs of 54%. Oh, 54%. Those were the days, weren't they? When Trump came back into office, he placed a 20% tariff on imports from China. Last week, he put an additional 34% tariff on goods from the Middle Kingdom, taking us to 54%. China has since responded with an additional 34% tariff on U.S. goods imported to their country, and Trump has apparently never heard about what is good for the goose. A piece from the Associated Press had Trump posting on his own personal hell site, "If China does not withdraw its 34% increase above their already long-term trading abuses by tomorrow, the 8th of April, hold on a second, that's today. If they don't do that by the 8th of April, the U.S. will impose additional tariffs on China of 50%, effective the 9th of April. Additionally, all talks with China concerning their requested meetings with us will be terminated." Needless to say, that did nothing good for Apple shares. They ended the day down almost $7, off a little over 3.5%. Picked up a tiny bit after hours, though. They'll start trading today around 182. So we got more tariff turmoil to look forward to. In the meantime, before the extra 50% escalation, people were reportedly hitting Apple stores in droves. According to Bloomberg, one employee said their store was slammed with people panic buying iPhones. "Almost every customer asked me if prices were going to go up soon," said the worker, who asked not to be identified because they weren't authorized to speak publicly. The piece says it wasn't like launch day for an iPhone, more like the busy holiday season, according to employees. Ironically, if it is sustained, Bloomberg says the current rush for iPhones could bolster current quarter earnings for Apple. Hey, maybe somebody will ask them about that in a few weeks. We're currently at the start of Apple's third quarter of fiscal year 2025, the second quarter having ended in March. On Monday, the company tipped Wall Street on its next earnings report. Apple will offer numbers and field or dodge questions from analysts on the 1st of May. That is a Thursday. Something else starts on the 1st of May. Can't remember what. Well, that call will be meant to cover what happened in the March quarter, believe analysts will be trying to find out as much as they can about the current quarter and beyond. You know, the 1st of May, they also call that May Day. May Day, May Day, May Day. Even before the possibility of a 104% tariff on goods from China, reports had Apple poking a few other sites for iPhone production. The Times of India piece says that country is likely to play an increasingly important role in Apple's global production network as the company shifts more manufacturing away from China. In fact, the Wall Street Journal ran a whole story about Apple's plans to source more iPhones from India to avoid the worse China import tariffs. Thing is, though, India has a 26% reciprocal tariff expected to go into effect tomorrow, and besides, Apple's probably learned a thing or two about too many eggs in too few baskets. Perhaps with that in mind, a piece late last week from 9 to 5 Mac had Apple considering increased iPhone production in Brazil. The piece had sources telling a Brazilian magazine that Apple has been considering expanding the capacity of its facilities in Brazil as a way to pay lower import duties on iPhone. According to the report, iPhone 13, 14, and 15 have already been manufactured in the country. Apple and Foxconn Brazil were recently granted certification for building iPhone 16 in the country, though Apple is said to be eyeing production of iPhone 16 Pro in Brazil as well. The piece says the move would represent a cost savings for the Cupertino company, while imports from China have either a 54% or a 104% tariff, and imports from India have a 26% tariff. The tariff on imports from Brazil is only 10%. Of course, it will take time for Apple and Foxconn to significantly increase Brazilian iPhone production. Who knows what tariffs will be next week, let alone when or if iPhone production in Brazil gets into full swing. Part of the case around the UK's reported demand for a backdoor into encrypted data held in Apple's iCloud will happen in public. I guess. The contours of this whole thing are sketchy. Back in February came reports that the UK government, under the Investigatory Powers Act, had demanded a backdoor into the iCloud data that I mentioned a moment ago. Apple was never able to acknowledge that demand, as doing so would violate the Investigatory Powers Act. But what Apple did do was pull its advanced data protection offering from the UK. A piece from TechCrunch says that offering allows customers to encrypt their files in iCloud. The thing is, what the UK government reportedly wanted wasn't just access to data encrypted by UK citizens, but data of any user of Apple's iCloud that British intelligence saw fit to request. Fed up with the cloak and dagger around the whole thing were privacy and rights advocates, news outlets, US lawmakers, and Trump administration officials. And they seem to have sort of prevailed. The TechCrunch piece I mentioned says the UK's Investigatory Powers Tribunal has agreed to open part of a surveillance order brought against Apple and have parts of the legal case over it held in public. In its ruling on Monday, says TechCrunch, the tribunal's judges said that they don't accept that the revelation of the bare details of the case would be damaging to public interest or prejudicial to national security. This is the first public acknowledgement that the case exists, though specific details of the case were withheld. No word on whether what will be acknowledged is any greater than what's already been reported. No word on next steps in the case. Neither the UK Home Office nor Apple offered comment for the TechCrunch report. And finally today, a new trailer for the continuation of an Apple TV Plus series. The Cupertino streamer issued a press release Monday announcing a release date for the second season of the Kids and Family Adventure series, WondLa. I won't tell you anything about it because I read about it and now I know things I wish I didn't, having not yet watched the first season. That said, I can tell you a couple of things without spoiling anything. Season 2 picks up where Season 1's cliffhanger left viewers hanging. and Season 2 will be the middle of 3 installments of the series. Season 1 of WondLa is available to stream now. The second season hits Apple TV Plus on Friday, the 25th of April. If you're cool being spoiled, you can catch the Season 2 trailer now on YouTube. macOS Ken, brought to you by me and supported by people like you, patrons through Patreon. Find out more and add your support at patreon.com/macOSCan. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media, online at backbeatmedia.com. You can reach me a couple of ways. info@macosken.com or call 716-780-4080. Until next time, that is news from macOS Ken. I'm Ken Ray.
Leonard likes this post.